This is the most important election in the history of our country. I'm not a threat to democracy at all.
It's been 7 or 8 weeks since would-be assassin fired 8 rounds.
How can you say it's luck when it's 20 million to 1, where that bullet could have missed?
And has it changed you?
Being president is a dangerous job. I never realized how dangerous.
RFK Jr. has offered his support to you and your campaign. Will he have a role in your administration? $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion. And no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you.
That's why Preserve Gold is giving away a free precious metals guide. Text the word PHIL to 50505, and you can also get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. Or simply call 844-407-6375 and mention PHIL today.
Mr. President, thank you for sitting down with me again.
Thank you.
Very proud to be talking to you. You've been really busy, and I have to ask you, it's been 7 or 8 weeks since would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks climbed on top of a roof on a shockingly close building right in front of you and fired 8 rounds from an AR-style assault rifle, shooting you in the ear.
Take a look at what happened.
Experts said, frankly, you shouldn't be here right now. Experts said a kill shot was almost a certainty. But yet, here you sit. You had to have asked yourself, you had to have reflected on this. How am I here, and why am I here? How do you answer that question?
It's a very hard one to answer. When it happened, it was a whack. I mean, I said something's going on there. It was a real whack to the ear. But you're not thinking about that. And I was lucky I went down quickly, because if I didn't go down quickly, bullets were coming right over my head when I was down. I heard them. They were moving along. They moved pretty fast. I said, how fast does a bullet go? They said about 3,000 miles an hour. That's a lot. They gave it to me in feet, and then they gave it to me. I said, no, I want to know in miles per hour. And it's more than 3,000 miles an hour, and you hear it. You hear the whipping sound. So I was lucky in that regard. But the big luck was, because that's something you can control. You go down quickly. If you don't go down quickly, you have a problem. But the big thing was the turn. And it wasn't only the turn. It had to be a perfect 90-degree turn, or you would have been, I wouldn't be with you today. And I had to be looking at something to the right. And the people, we had massive crowds, and they were in front. So there was no reason to be looking to the right. You had no people right or left. And you know the graph, my all-time favorite graph, showing my great numbers on immigration, stopping immigration virtually at the border, which is a big subject. And I was very proud of that graph, but I only use it about 20% of the time. It's always on my left, and it's always at the end of my speeches, always. And this was the very beginning of the speech. I mean, like the very beginning, it was on my right. So if you add it all up, it's like millions to 1. Millions, the odds. But I made that perfect turn. I just see it on television again. It's today, just before I came in. It's up big on the screen again today. And in finding out, I have the endorsement of the NRA, but I don't know. I have no knowledge of guns. Like, as an example, I have 2 sons that have extreme knowledge. They're great shooters. And Don and Eric both told me separately that that's a guaranteed shot for a bad shooter from that distance. 130 yards sounded like a long way away. As a shooter, that's a very close target. They said, to relate it to me, they said it would be like sinking a 1-foot putt. I said, that's not good.
So why were you spared? You've had to reflect on this alone in the middle of the night in a golf cart riding down the way thinking about it. How do you answer that? Why were you spared?
So there had to be some great power, because you just can't say millions to one, millions to one. I used to say 1,000,000 to 1. It's much more than that, because, again, you have to pull down the sign. There has to be a reason to go right, and I never go right. There's no reason. And not only go right, it's for about 1/8 of a second. It's not just right. It's out of all the time that we're on this planet, it's 1/8 of a second, right? So I shouldn't be with you. So
is there a purpose?
well,
was there a reason you think you were spared?
I mean, the only thing I can think is that God loves our country, and he thinks we're going to bring our country back. He wants to bring it back. It's so bad right now what's happening. When you look at the crime, the horrible things that are happening inside our country, and it can be solved. It can be solved fairly quickly. It has to be God. I mean, how can you say it's luck when it's, 20 million to 1? Okay, I mean, it's just not possible that I was in that position. It's the only position where that bullet could have missed.
And you believe in God?
I do.
You believe God's hand was in this that day?
I believe so, yeah, I do.
And you talk about the country. You believe you have more to do. You weren't done. You were spared for a reason.
Well, God believes that, I guess. We'll have to see. Number one, I'm in an election with a very vicious group of people. I won the election against Biden. I was up by 17 or 18 points after the debate. And they said, you know what, he's going to lose. They went and told him he's going to lose, and we're going to change you out. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it. In fact, he said, only God will change me. But so who knows what happened there. But he said, I'm not leaving. He got 14 million votes, and Kamala got none, 0. She ran against him. She got 0. She never made it to Iowa, which is the first state. And here she is. She's on the other side. But, it's like nobody ever had this before. You have an opponent. In politics, you have an opponent, and you win or you lose. But you don't have an opponent, and then you're doing well against the opponent. They take him out. They give you a new opponent. They give you a nice, fresh opponent. And so I have to win that. And if I win that, that would really serve to say that there's some incredible power up there that wanted me to be involved in saving, and maybe it's more than saving the nation, maybe it's saving the world. I get along with all those tough guys. And Russia wouldn't have gone into Ukraine. You'd have 1 million people living right now. You'd have cities all over Ukraine. I mean, these magnificent cities with the domes and the golden domes and towers, they'd all be up. They're right now demolished. So many, those cities, the country is just demolished. Israel wouldn't have happened. October 7th would have never happened. Iran was broke with me. And I don't want them to be broke, but I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon.
So you think you're meant to take those challenges on? You're meant to serve in that way?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. In thinking about it, it's beyond any of us, I guess, to really know that. But I can say that for that bullet to have gone along this path right here, and for that bullet to have gone along that path and hit the top of my ear, as opposed to any other place, would have been no good. And it traveled that path for a long way, relatively speaking. That path was traveled for a long way.
It killed a man. It killed a man behind you.
It did. It killed a man, and
Corey Comparatore,
that's
and
right.
It critically injured 2 others.
Who thought they weren't going to make it. The doctors said they will not make it, and they did. The doctors were incredible.
You've been very attentive and involved with those families, and I understand a lot of support and help for those families has taken place.
Well, we gave a friend of mine who's a pretty rich guy, was very moved by what happened, and he said, do you mind if I give Corey, he called him Corey, everyone calls him Corey now, firefighter, great firefighter, fire chief of a small town.
Volunteer, right?
Volunteer, no substantial money, obviously.
Right.
They live comfortably, they love each other, they have a great family, beautiful family actually, but not money. And I said, good, what do you want to give? He said $1 million. He wrote out a check right in front of me for $1 million, and we presented it to the wife. That's more money than they have ever even thought about. But on top of that, we raised close to $6 million in GoFundMe, and that's going to be split up. We're doing it now, obviously with Corey's family getting more. The other two made it, and they're going to be in good shape. I can't stress how good those doctors were. It was going to be 3 dead, and it turned out to be 1, but they were hit hard.
Well, it was
and
terrible.
they just made it. They were very close also. And so they're going to be getting probably close to $1.5 million each.
How'd you feel about the Secret Service and the job they did?
Well, look, they were very brave, because when those bullets were coming at me, and you saw it, I was down, because I went down quickly, fortunately. Otherwise, because the bullets were going right over my head. So that was another thing. But see, I don't talk about that as that was a question of going down. The other was a question of you had to be in an exact, perfect position, and it's almost impossible to have achieved that position. You have to be right. You have to have used the graph. The whole thing is just so crazy. You never use it at the beginning of the speech. Never. I've never used it at the beginning. I just said, pull down the graph, and I look over at the graph, and I get whacked. Sort of like a bolting deer. Don, my son Don, said it's like a bolting deer. Great shots can miss a bolting deer. They shoot simultaneously with the deer bolting, and it bolts for some reason. I guess that was my bolt. But it was absolutely amazing. But the Secret Service, obviously somebody should have been on the roof. You can't, the roof was empty. And there was a lack of communication between local law enforcement and Secret Service. It seems to be coming out. So they're going to have to work that out. I can say this, on stage we had great bravery, because bullets were coming at me, and they were coming right on top of me. And within about 3 or 4 seconds, I was covered with bodies. Had the sniper, the Secret Service sniper, and it may have been somebody else in addition, may have been a local police shot also, I don't know. But had that shot not been made from a long distance, much longer, and hit its target, 1 bullet, then they would have been dead probably, because there would have been a pile and he would have been shooting into the pile. And in addition, you would have had a lot of people killed. This could have been like that Las Vegas disaster where that horrible human being killed a lot of people at a concert.
Has this changed you? Has it changed your appreciation for life? Has it changed anything about you? Did you hug your kids extra hard? I mean, has it changed you?
You know, a lot of people ask me, and a lot of people say, like, have you developed any fear of, doing this? Like, because look, being president is a dangerous job. It's much more dangerous than a race car driver or than anything. It's probably the most dangerous profession if you think about it. Just go up and down the list. So you have 46, and numerous left early or got hit. It's a very dangerous job. I never realized how dangerous, but I was at the border yesterday, and they were a dangerous place. He allowed it. He and her allowed it to become dangerous. It's a very, very dangerous place. I was doing an interview, and Secret Service said, "Sir, please, no more standing up." They don't want me to stand up. People, especially with the kind of weapons they have today, people have shots. And, but it's a great job. It's an interesting job. You can do so much good, but it's a dangerous job.
You say that you may have been spared to serve, and to do that as President of the United States, you have to defeat Kamala Harris on November 5th. First, what do you think of her as a person? What do you think of Kamala Harris as a person, just personally?
Well, I don't know her. you get to know people when you watch them on television or when you see them and read them, and but
So you don't know her personally?
she's a Marxist. Well, I can see by action. She's a person that wanted to defund the police very strongly, bailed out a lot of people in Minnesota from jails who did some really bad things. I saw that very loud and clear then when that took place. A lot of bad things. I mean, she's done a lot of bad things. There will be no fracking. There will be no drilling. She doesn't want to drill, which will mean our country is going to shrivel up and die. You can't run the country without fossil fuel, at least not for quite a while, because you don't have the power. They don't have the power. You know, they have all sorts of nice contraptions, but they don't have wind. Is fine, but it kills the birds. It destroys the fields. Destroys the fields. What it does. You know how economists and various they go over it. Wind is the most expensive energy in the world, and the environmentalists love it. Why do they love it? It kills all the birds. Walk to the bottom of a windmill and take a look. It looks like a bird cemetery. But you need the fossil fuel. She's totally against it. And you know, politicians, when they're against something early, that's where they're going to be. And if she got in, she would not allow fracking in Pennsylvania. She will not allow drilling all over the place. The only reason she's allowing it now is they were ending everything, and all of a sudden prices started to go up through the roof. And they say, go back to the Trump policy for a little while. But if she won this election, she'd go to things that won't work. The Green New Scam, I call it. And it'll be very bad. I think she'd be worse than Biden. Biden was the worst president in the history of our country. She's gone down as the worst vice president. I mean, she was known 5 weeks ago. She was known as a joke. She was known as a terrible vice president. Laughed at, scoffed at. They wanted him out, but they didn't want her. They would have done anything to get anybody on the list. You know, they had a list of 10 people. And they put her on the list, and she came in 11th. She was the last on the list, actually, in terms of professionalism, in terms of everything else. Then all of a sudden they realized that's not going to be politically acceptable. They didn't want to do it. They didn't have the guts to make that move. And they ended up with her. And then the fake news media, of course, got right behind her. And at this moment, she can do no wrong. But if you follow politics and if you see what she said, she'll destroy this country with her tax increases and everything else.
You don't have anything against her personally.
No.
You're just talking about her values and her belief. You don't know her.
No, I don't. I don't know her. I don't know her.
But these are things that she said then, but is she saying different things now about fracking and that sort of thing? Because the things you're saying she said, I've heard her say those things in the past, but is she saying different things now?
Well, a lot of things, I would say 95, maybe almost 100% is totally different. She's like my policy. She's like energy and this. You know, we were energy independent 4 years ago. Today it's a whole different story. But everything's changed. She's gone from no fracking under any circumstances. We're not talking a long time ago. We're talking about 3 years ago. And we're talking about when she was running. When she was running against Biden, and I guess they had close to 22 people. She was the first one to leave. She was out. She did very badly. That's why it's so crazy. She was last out of 22, and now she's the one that is running. And she's getting a free press. Her speech, when you examine it, was very bad for our country. She's going to raise taxes tremendously. She's going to force companies out of our country. You know, these are great international companies. They don't have to be here. They can be in other countries. You know that better than anybody. And if other countries, maybe in Europe or other places, are going to say, we're going to charge you 10% tax, and the U.S. is going to be at 54% when you add local and state taxes. I mean, they get paid for how much money they make. It's a simple business, very simple business. How much money is the company making? And if you're going to have to pay 54% here, you're gone. You're going to move to another country. They have some very nice countries to live in. and they're very loyal to their shareholders. They almost have an obligation to do it. So she's going to chase a lot of companies out of our country with what she's talking about.